always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to Chaos. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. I thought of you when I was wakened by a wind that made me glad and afraid, of the rushing, pouring sound of the sea that the great trees made. One thought in my mind went over and over while the darkness shook and the leaves were thinned. I thought it was you who had come to find me. You were the wind. Sarah Teasdale in The Storm. When tempest tossed, embrace chaos. A supposed excerpt from the Book of Counted Sorrows, quotes from which are featured in many Dean Koontz novels. An interesting quote, and so is this one. Tiny differences in input could quickly become overwhelming differences in output. In weather, for example, this translates into what is only half jokingly known as the butterfly effect. The notion that a butterfly stirring the air today in Peking can transform storm systems next month in New York. An excerpt from the prologue to Chaos by James Gleick. And Willa Cather quoted in Simple Abundance, A Daybook of Comfort and Joy by Sarah Vaughan Brannock, wrote, "There are some things you learn best in calm, and some in storm." A little chaos theory this hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Amanda Marshall and Fall from Grace, and Sheryl Crow with Sting, always on your side. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Patrick Anderson in The Washingtonian wrote, "The difference between the city and the country is that there are far more people around you in the city. This means more congestion and chaos. But it also means that you have the luxury of choosing your friends and the choice of ignoring your neighbors. A village is like a lifeboat. You're stuck with one another. You must come to terms with people of different outlooks and values, people whom you might ignore in a city. The guy next door may be a jerk, but you have to deal with him because your kid and his kid are buddies. And when your pump breaks down, you'll go to him for water." The good news and bad news about village life are the same. You become intimately involved with the lives of other people. Unquote. And if you're at the cottage this weekend, you might be silently agreeing with me. Some mythology concerning chaos. Many people pass by a curiously carved, meter-high dome of stone in the museum at Delphi, the site of the famous ancient Greek oracle, without recognizing what it is. Legend says that the god Zeus sent out 2 eagles of equal speed from the opposite ends of the earth to locate the center of the world, the sacred place from which order was born out of chaos. Their flights crossed at Delphi. So Zeus marked the spot with an omphalos stone, Greek for navel. Delphi was generally recognized by Greeks as the world center, but any region could have its own omphalos. Several other Greek temples had similar stones, forerunners perhaps of the Western building tradition of the foundation stone. Unquote. An excerpt from At the Center of the World from the Reader's Digest Almanac of the Uncanny. Do you remember the film Troy? From the DVD edition was Troy's Gallery of the Gods, and this about Ares. And I quote, "Ruthless and murderous, the god of war Ares was, with his passion for destruction, embodies in his legend the worst of humanity's traits. It is said that as he and his consorts, grief, strife, panic, and terror, walk the earth in search of devastation and brutality, that a chorus of groans echoes to the heavens." Today, centuries after the fall of Troy, Ares still casts his shadow across the world. His appetite for chaos and pain echo throughout the ages. Unquote. In Greece, the night goddess, first child of chaos, was called Nyx, a winged deity who, as each day approached its close, drew a black veil across the sky and flew free in the heavens, trailed by a retinue of stars. A little chaos theory this hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Kelly Rowland, Unity, Train with Drops of Jupiter, and Sarah McLachlan with World on Fire. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I've always been fond of Japanese gardens. Jill Hale writes in a book concerning the feng shui garden, and I quote, "A feng shui garden is one in which the energies of the earth and cosmos and the cycles of living things run their natural course. Chaos and order, the defining features of our cosmos." And this excerpt from Angels on Earth, a guidepost publication. The ocean is beautiful, but it is also huge, violent, and in its way terrifying. The Bible endlessly uses it as a symbol of chaos for good reason. Unquote. An article by their senior editor, Ptolemy Tompkins, and the Message of the Seashell. And this from Julian Huxley, a short piece he wrote called Points of View. And again I quote, "We men are from one point of view mere trivial microbes, but from another, the crown of creation. Both views are true, and we must hold them together, interpenetrating in our thought. From the point of view of the stellar universe, whose size and meaningless spaces baffle comprehension and belief, man may appear a mere nothing, and all his efforts destined to disappear like the web of a spider brushed down from the corner of a little room in the basement of a palace. But meanwhile, he is engaged upon a task which by him can be imagined, the task of imposing mind and spirit upon matter and outer force. This he does by confronting chaos of outer happenings with his intellect and generating ordered knowledge, with his aesthetic sense and generating beauty, with his purpose and generating control of nature, with his ethical sense and his sense of humor and generating character, with his reverence and generating religion." Unquote. Julian Huxley and Points of View. Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. John Mayer, Waiting on the World to Change, and Paul Anka with Anthea Anka, and Do I Love You. You must be familiar with the term ASAP, as soon as possible, right? An unknown author had a different take on it, and I quote, "Ever wonder about the abbreviation ASAP? Generally, we think of it in terms of even more hurry and stress in our lives. Maybe if we think of this abbreviation in a different manner, we will begin to find a new way to deal with those rough days along the way. There's work to do, deadlines to meet. You've got no time to spare. But as you hurry and scurry, ASAP, always say a prayer. In the midst of family chaos, quality time is rare. Do your best. Let God do the rest. ASAP, always say a prayer." It may seem like your worries are more than you can bear. Slow down and take a breather. ASAP, always say a prayer. Lovers and Other Strangers, from CHFI.com. Celine Dion with Andrea Bocelli and The Prayer. Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. This is something I've featured in the past, its author unknown. And I quote, "I think Charles Allen said it first. When faced with problems which threaten to steal your peace of mind, learn the meaning of the word imperturbability." I heard of two artists who were asked to illustrate peace. Each was assigned the task of depicting a peaceful scene on canvas. The first artist drew a beautiful picture of a countryside on a warm spring day. A soft sun illumines green grass. A picturesque farmhouse and grazing cattle are bathed in its warmth. A farmer walks contentedly behind strong plow horses, making his field ready for spring planting. The picture is one of beauty and quiet tranquility. The other artist took a different approach. He drew a majestic, rugged cliff. Gnarled trees, twisted by years of violent winds, jut from the craggy mountainside. Dark clouds hang low and fierce, while jagged streaks of lightning slash across an angry sky. The picture is one of violence, chaos, and rage. But as one looks closely, something else becomes visible. There, in one of the crevices of the Rocky Mountain, tucked back just out of reach of the wind and rain, a nest with two small birds. Apparently unconcerned about the impending storm, they appear calm, cozy, and peaceful as they patiently wait for the turbulence to pass. And isn't that the way it so often is? We may want to be surrounded by peace, but storms rage. Problems and pressures without threaten to steal peace of mind within. The answer is imperturbability, inner peace which doesn't leave when circumstances change. It's a peace which is greater than the problems of life, built on assurance that the tempest will finally pass. We will survive the storm. We may grow stronger because of it, and in the meantime, we will not endure it alone. Imperturbability. It's the result of a peace which passes understanding. For serenity is not freedom from the storm, but peace amid the storm. unquote. Another writer said, quiet minds cannot be perplexed or frightened, but go on in misfortune at their own private pace, like the ticking of a clock during a thunderstorm. Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Five for Fighting, with the anthem that became popular after the chaos of 9/11, and Superman, and John Lennon watching the wheels. Remember the sunshine when the storm seems unending. An excerpt from a writing called May You Always Feel Loved. Its author unknown. A good thing to keep in mind when we seem to be in the direct path of summer storms this year. And Somerset Maugham wrote, the only thing which makes it possible to regard this world we live in without disgust is the beauty which now and then men create out of the chaos. The pictures they paint, the music they compose, the books they write, and the lives they lead. Of all these, the richest in beauty is a life well lived. That is the perfect work of art. Lovers and Other Strangers from CHFI.com. I hope you'll tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.